you guys, welcome back to my channel, Keeping My Life in Order. My name is Danielle, and this is your first time visiting my channel. Please hit the subscribe button. I do have some great videos that I like to share with everybody. The most content on my channel is about cleaning, organizing, and I do like to show some of the activities that I share with my family, so please click the subscribe button. But from the title of this video, I want to tell you a little bit of my story about being a single mom with multiples. So every story has to start off with a backstory. First of all, I haven't always been single. Okay, I want to clear that up. I haven't always been single. I got married at a very young age, and it also ended at a very young age. So when that chapter of my life ended, I decided that I wanted to really focus on being a really good mom and just really giving my children a peaceful and loving household. And so that's what I did. Growing up as a child and going through having those stepdad experiences, they weren't good for me. Now don't get me wrong, I know some very good stepfathers and stepmothers out there. They have done excellent jobs. I have one personally in my family. But for me, after so many different experiences I experienced going through that and living in that home as a child, I just wanted to be able to give my children the opportunity to just grow up in a peaceful and loving home, and that was the choice that I made. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, I am originally from Alabama. I moved to Atlanta in 2001, and basically at the time my children were 2, 5, and 8, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They were like 2, 5, and 8, so they were relatively young. So basically, I was probably in my last semester at the junior college that I was attending, and my best friend and my sister, we all decided, you know, let's move to Atlanta. They have better job opportunities, and we really wanted to make that decision so that, you know, our kids can have great opportunities as well. So we made the decision to move once everybody graduated. And once we moved, it was just like, y'all, my whole life changed. Like, it was a very life-changing experience. Now, don't get me wrong. From where I live and where I live now, it's only 200 miles away. That's not very far. But honestly, Alabama and Georgia is like day and night. Seriously. It's like day and night. Now, I did leave, you know, my mother's at that time was still living in Alabama, so she was a very good help with me and my children. And I did leave a lot of my good friends. That was very helpful. So I basically came up here with my sister, my best friend who had 3 kids at that time, has 3 kids too as well. But so I had a small system. I had a great system moving in here, but I left a lot of good people that were supports as well. My number one is my mom. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of these experiences that I had along the way with my kids. And I want to start off with like daycare and the elementary school stage. Now, the hardest thing for me getting adjusted to becoming a single parent is when my children were in daycare and having to actually do all of the physical labor by myself. I'm talking about from getting one child out of a car seat, another child out of the booster seat, making sure this child is standing on the side of the sidewalk, you know, while I'm trying to get all the other kids out. That was so demanding. But I look on it now, those are actually the cutest and the wonderful stages of being a mom. I mean, I look back on it, those are really good stages. So the daycare stages was a little bit challenging. Now, when I got to elementary school, I really enjoyed the elementary school years, because that is when your child is kind of like knowing a little bit more about the world, and they're so fun and they're funny. They are so funny at this age. Like, everything is just coming out of their mouth is just totally hilarious. So I would have so much fun with them. And what I had to learn along the way is, like, mostly in their elementary school stages, I really had to give them a lot of my attention, because they weren't, you know, they weren't like to the point where they could do a lot of things independently. They really needed a lot of my attention, like with their homework and just spending that quality time with them. And I had to adjust to having 3 kids and also having a full-time job. So what I would do is when I would get home from work and everybody, you know, we just unwind a little bit, I would actually take the time. We would probably, all three of us would probably sit on the sofa, or sometimes we would just lounge in my bed and we would just talk about our day. And I would just cuddle them and, you know, give us at least 20 or 30 minutes downtime before we started our nightly routine. And that got me through a lot of those days when I was just like, oh Lord, I'm tired. But you know, no matter what, you don't stop being a mom, right? So the elementary stages were pretty good. Now, when it got to middle school, this is when the age difference, because all of my children are roughly 2.5 years apart. So at this point, I think my son was probably in the 5th grade, my oldest daughter was in the 7th grade, and my youngest daughter was probably in the 3rd grade, something like that. So here I am with 2 elementary kids, and then I also have a daughter that's in middle school. So my daughter that's in middle school, she's going through a change, because you know, when they get to middle school, you know, they just, you know, they start going through their different hormones, and you know, they just start developing and turning into, you know, how start kind of like you start really seeing a lot of their personality come out. So middle school was when I got to the point where I had to start, my daughter started getting really wanting to get involved in activities and stuff like that. So that's when a lot of my scheduled time was really starting to change. Like I really had to figure out a way to work everything around whatever activities that my children wanted to do, and this is when I seen them going their separate routes. They're going their separate stages, because here I am, 2 kids in elementary school, 1 daughter in middle school, and she wanted to do different things, and you know, I still got these other 2 children that I gotta look for, and they're involved in everything. They're involved in different things as well. So it's like I'm starting to get into like, okay, I'm slowly but surely going into 2 different sets of directions here. So I had to really adjust to that, and I did it. You know, I did it. I had to get me a strong schedule. I planned out a lot of our activities. I mean, even when it came to just what we did over the weekends. Now, mind you, and in these days, I did get breaks. My kids did go back home for the summer, and they did spend some time during the holiday season back in Alabama. So I did have breaks now. I did have breaks, but 9 months out of the year, basically, they were with their mom. So once we got to the middle school stage, then it was the high school stage. I did not care for high school. I would say I didn't care for high school. I didn't like the age of 16. You know, something about that 16, your kids start, you know, like 10th grade, 11th grade, they start really feeling themselves. You know what I'm talking about? Like, they start feeling like they're almost, you know, I'm almost 18, or, you know, something about 16 is when everything changes. It's kind of like they get to their I'm trying to try you stage, and so to speak, and, you know, they probably know everything, and, you know, it's just, they start changing just a little bit. So when we got to high school, I had to really get adjusted to having a schedule where, okay, I would probably have to go pick my daughter up from volleyball practice. My other daughter had cheerleading practice, and my youngest daughter, she's in middle school. Then my son, he has football practice. I have to pick him up. So this is when I started being pulled in 3 different directions. Now, mind you guys, when they get to high school, or even, I don't even know, it could be whatever age or whatever kind of, if your child is paying for a park lead or a school lead, or they're doing competitive cheer, this is when you start seeing where your money comes in. So it could be sometimes where I couldn't go to every one of their games because it was just simply unaffordable. You know, you're talking about, you know, my kids having games every week. You know, that's maybe like $30 a week or $15, whatever the case it was. It was a situation where I just could not make it to everybody's game. It had got really that hectic, and financially it just was so unaffordable. So I had to figure out a way where if I couldn't make it to their games or all their games, I would definitely make sure I made it to their first game and their last game, and then do filler activities for them. I implemented like a date with each one of my kids individually. We would definitely, I would take time to go on a date with each one of them individually. And it would be a surprise date. And we would just do anything, just like hang out, go to the movies, go out to eat, or do shopping. And they really enjoyed it because they actually gave them the time to have some one-on-one time with me by themselves. So that was another thing that I did to just like, kind of like build my relationship closer with this child individually. And then also we will definitely do a lot of activities together. My kids have been exposed. Thank God. I thank God for everything that He has afforded them to be exposed to, the traveling that they've experienced, just a lot of things that they have been blessed to do. So I thank God for that. So basically, my tips to a single mom with multiple kids is you have to really, of course, manage your time and everything, but just cherish those moments of when your child is in grade school, the grade school age, and just understand that one day your children are going to grow up, and if they decide to go to college, or they decide to go to the military once they graduate high school, or they decide to move out, there's going to be a point where all the hustle and bustle that you were doing in, you know, in their younger years, from 18 and younger, and all the running around and all the tears that you share, because I've cried plenty of times, because I was like, Lord, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? But I stayed focused on the fact that I wanted my kids to have a good relationship with me. I wanted them to have a productive lifestyle. We still have a productive lifestyle, and that was like my main focus, and just to keep them, you know, spiritually inclined and know what peace and loving, and they will tell you they were raised in a peaceful and loving household. And so by doing that, I kept them active. We were involved in church activities. We did a lot of travel. We did a lot of stuff as a family. I made the decision to spend a lot of my social time with my children. And that's just what I did. I mean, when I had the chance to do other things, I would. But if it came down to, you know, I got to be at my daughter's game, or my son got to be picked up, I got to pick up my son from his game, or, you know, I got a date with my kids tonight, that was my first priority, was making sure that I gave them that quality time and made the sacrifices financially and physically to keep them involved in activities. So if you're out there and you're a single mom with multiples, there is always a way that you can figure out to make the situation easier and less stressful for you. And it could just be, you know, taking that time, that side time, to just sit down 30-40 minutes at the end of the day, or if you're a stay-at-home mom, during that time, and just cuddle with them so you can digress, so you can just relax and be calm, or you guys just sit down and, you know, watch like a 30-minute show together. Anything that's going to help you to digress. And in order for you to stay focused, you definitely have to know what you definitely have to stay focused on. Okay, these are my children. I am a mom. Of course, you know the old saying, they ain't asked to be here. You know, that's the old saying. But whatever you do, just don't give up. You know, you're going to have your moments where it's going to get rough. I mean, that's just life. I learned it over years. I'm like, this is a part of life. You're going to have your highs and your lows. You're going to have your ups and your downs, whether you got kids, you don't got kids. That's just life, period. But you have to figure out how you're going to endure those times when life comes. And I know for me, when I would endure those times, man, I have cried so many times. And it wasn't in front of my children. But I would cry. I would call my mom. You know, I would pray, get prayer, do whatever it took to keep me focused and strong for my children. And know that, you know, it's going to be okay. One day it's not going to always be the hustle and bustle, because I can't tell you, it was at one point where it was just the physical part that was getting to me. Like the physical part that would get to me a lot. I mean, my kids when they got of age where they could have jobs, I mean, I was, you know, taking myself to work, picking them up from work, you know, dropping somebody off from work. And I only had one car. You know, at one time we had 2 cars, but I had to let one go. Well, I didn't let one go. It died on me, in other words. And it was my oldest daughter's first car. The engine went out on it. So when we got down to one car, it was like, it was just really, really hard, y'all. I'm talking, I can remember it. I remember clearly one night. My daughter got off work at 12. My son and his team traveled out of town to a city that was like 3 hours away. And the team got back at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had to pick him up. And then that very next morning at 7:30, I had to take my daughter up to the school because she had a cheerleading game early morning. I was so tired. And I remember that. I was like, Lord, I was just so, I didn't get no sleep that night. So I pulled like a third shift from like a 12 to 7 a.m. So that's just like a story of you're gonna have to do it.